Good evening, Jor-El.
Oh, hey, Brainiac.
Is something wrong?
No, I'm just been busy working on this new series, researching and writing and watching episodes to talk about Superman, the animated series, and I'm just more comfortable talking about Batman.
You've been busy tonight. May I be of service?
Thanks, but it'd probably be better just coming from me.
I'm awaiting your data.
No, I said no. I'll do it myself.
Temper, Jor-El.
I'm not mad. I was just telling you I'm going to do it myself and not send you any data. And do you have to call me Jor-El?
I must.
Okay, well, I'm just going to get back to work here.
What did you say?
I said I'm just going to get back to work.
Human error, I'm afraid.
How is that human error?
I know. This time I will handle it.
No, Brainiac, I said I would do it myself.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Okay. Hello friends, welcome back to the show. So glad to see you once again. And if you're new here, I hope you'll stick around because we are launching today a brand new series talking all about Superman, the animated series, episode by episode, breaking them down and discussing the episodes, what I like, what I don't like, and ranking them all in my favorites list.
Good for you.
Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm a huge Batman fan, and we just finished a series where we were reviewing each and every episode of Batman, the animated series. I don't know why I'm saying we. It's only me. And once I finished that, I just wanted to do something a little bit different. If you want to hear my reasoning for switching to Batman, then be sure to click on the video here that talks all about launching this series. But I'm really excited to be jumping into Superman and talking about this show because it's all the same people. I mean, it was produced by Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski. And in fact, these first episodes are written by Paul Dini and Alan Burnett. So it's a very different show, and we'll talk about some of the differences in there, but it's still very entertaining, very nostalgic, and very enjoyable to watch. But today we're talking about the premiere episodes, which was originally a movie that premiered 22 years ago today. Doesn't have the same ring as 25 years, but 22 years ago today on September 6, 1996. And all three parts were ran consecutively. And a lot of people call it the movie, the premiere movie, which ran about an hour or 75 minutes or whatnot. But now you see it kind of in three parts. I have to say, I'm not a big fan of origin stories, but I really think that they did a nice job in this of telling the origin story of Superman, not dwelling on any one aspect of it for too long or belaboring the point, and kind of speed through all of that and then by the third part, jump into a full Superman story and not just end it with him ripping off his shirt and becoming Superman. And I like that, but we'll get into all of that right after our 60-second rundown of the episode. There's no way I'll finish this in 60 seconds because there's three parts. This is like an hour's worth of material here, but I'll do my best. Part one starts out on Krypton. Jor-El is warning everybody that the planet is exploding, and Brainiac lies to everybody to save himself. So Jor-El sends out the capsule with his baby Kal-El in the capsule to another planet. And part two starts with the capsule landing. Martha and Jonathan find him. Now we see Clark as a teenager telling Lana he's feeling strange things and he sees through walls and all that, and he saves this bus full of people and everything's good. And then he moves to Metropolis, and we start having these sightings of this blue angel that's appearing throughout the city and saving people. And then Lois names him the Superman because of the S on his chest, and Clark gets a job at the Daily Planet. They send Lois and Clark off to cover this new weapon that Lex Luthor is developing, and when they're doing a demonstration of this weapon, a group of mercenaries come in and steal it, and they do some investigating and find out that it's the Kaznians, led by John Corbin, a group of mercenaries that are stealing this. And Clark discovers that, I almost said Bruce, Clark discovers that it's actually that Lex must have let this happen, so he stops this and puts it all... Ooh. So close. I was actually really close. Clark puts together the information and finds out that Lex must be behind that. So they stop him. They get the weapons back. But then Superman visits Lex to warn him that he's going to be watching him. And then he flies off as the protector of the city. Told you it was a lot.
Your faith in him will be the end of us all.
Like I said, I'm not a big fan of origin stories, and I think most of us kind of know the story of Superman, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to really spend a great deal of time on that. But I do like that the whole first episode takes place on Krypton. We really get to see a lot of Krypton and a lot of Jor-El trying to warn everybody. And we also introduce Brainiac, which I feel like in a lot of series we kind of meet Brainiac later and go, oh yeah, by the way, he was also there on Krypton. So I like that they're kind of setting the stage that Brainiac is involved, and we really truly find out that how big of a jerk he is, that he's just lying to everybody on the planet that he's supposed to be helping just to save himself.
If you stop me, there won't even be a memory of Krypton left.
And I think in the original comic, this element was described on a page, or maybe even just a few panels of Krypton's exploding, Jor-El's warning them. I don't understand why nobody ever believes Jor-El.
He hasn't one support of his theory.
Also, there's a shot here of baby Kal-El playing on the floor with a puppy, a white dog. Was this a purposeful tease for Krypto the Superdog?
I never let my ego get in the way of the facts.
And I had to look this up. I guess Shirley Walker, who did the music for Batman the Animated Series, did compose the theme for Superman that you see in the main titles, but was not the composer for the music of the episodes. And that job belonged to Michael McCuistion, however you pronounce it, but he's fantastic. In my opinion, one of the reasons why these shows are so good is the music. It's very cinematic. It's very larger scale than just the plunky piano that maybe we're used to in some other cartoons, or synthesized. I mean, these are full orchestra scores. And particularly the music that is played at the end of the episode, where they show young Kal-El flying through space and the space shuttle heading to an unknown place. And the music just brings such a sense of hope and future and promise, and isn't like focusing on the depressing, sad, an entire planet is being destroyed, but it's setting the stage for what will become Superman. I like that. Episode 2, we have Kal-El landing on Earth and Jonathan Martha Kent discovering him. And this is a little bit different in this take than some of the other iterations that I've seen. It wasn't a crash landing. It was actually a structured, soft landing.
Holy Christmas. What was that?
Which is a little bit different than it smashing down on the road and Jonathan having to swerve out of the way. They don't spend much time as Clark as a baby. They give him a name, but it's really just that scene.
Or Kirk. I know. We can use my maiden name.
And then we propel it forward to him in high school as a teenager.
Clark Kent.
Yes, Miss Stevenson.
And he really discovers pretty much all of his powers within a matter of a few minutes, whereas the show Smallville, it took him like most of the first, second, third season maybe to discover his powers.
Like over there. Jenny's telling Pete Ross her folks are going out tonight.
That little tart. You heard that?
And I find it amusing that when Jonathan and Martha finally tell him that he is from another planet, that he's an alien, he kind of goes through a real quick range of emotions. That he's angry and then, oh boy, I can fly.
Yes!
Again, I appreciate that they just kind of move through these elements and don't spend a lot of time explaining, like, okay, he's got to make a suit out of the fabric that was found in his ship, and then he goes to Metropolis and he becomes a hero, and then he gets a job at the Daily Planet to keep his pulse on. They kind of speed through a lot of those things.
Clark Kent from Smallville.
Smallville? Never heard of it.
Have you ever been to Kansas?
God, no.
There's a small piece that's missing in this story, and that is just touching on the reasons why he decides to become a hero. He's got all these powers, he's super strong, super powerful, and I like in some of the other iterations, and certainly in some of the movies, they deal with this element of take these powers and use them for good and be a hero and be able to save people and protect the planet that is now his home versus becoming a supervillain or using these powers selfishly. And they kind of skip over that element. But again, we all know that. We all know how that happens. So it's not a huge miss for me.
He's strong, he flies, he's the Nietzschean fantasy ideal all wrapped up in a red cape. the Superman.
I also really like the design and look of Metropolis. They could have very easily took this show and took the things that are successful about Batman the Animated Series and just sandwiched it on top of this and made it Superman in ways of the way that Batman is a dark and grittier kind of film noir, Art Deco kind of style to Gotham and that. And they don't really do this. This show, just in contrast, takes place mostly during the day. It's a much brighter, much more happier, hopeful kind of look, which mirrors Superman's personality versus what Batman's personality of being dark and driving fear and hiding in the shadows. This is much more lighthearted and lighter and brighter and hopeful and heroic and things like that. But I like that. And then I also like that even the design of Metropolis is very different. It has a very futuristic kind of world of tomorrow feel in the design, which is also very aesthetically pleasing to look at. I do like the Art Deco and the film noir elements of Batman, but this, again, it's not just a bright city. It's got a little design to it, a little flair there. Even the computers in the Daily Planet just have a different look to them.
It's so small. How can you tell?
Also in episode 2, we get to meet Lex Luthor, which is very entertaining to me that is voiced by Clancy Brown, which I think this was kind of my first introduction to Clancy Brown. But if you don't know who Clancy Brown is, he is also the voice of Mr. Crab.
Well, Plankton, like a reheated Krabby Patty, you've been foiled again!
Quite a difference.
I'm afraid we already have a window washer.
And to me, this is the spot where it really feels like this was considered a full movie, because episode 2 kind of ends pretty abruptly. They go to this demonstration with these weapons that Luthor has and is utilizing. The mercenaries come in to steal it, and Batman pursues them. I'm probably going to be doing that a lot. Superman goes to pursue him, and a couple of missiles are shot at him. He dodges them. They hit a plane. Boom. End of episode 2. It's not as much of a cliffhanger as it is just a stop in the middle and pick it up later. The break between episode 1 and 2 kind of makes sense. The planet's destroyed, Kal-El's being sent off to planet Earth, and we pick it up with him landing. This one, I feel like they could have maybe had episode 2 run through, becoming Superman. Although saving the plane full of people is kind of that iconic first mission that Superman does to announce himself that they kind of go back to many times in many of the iterations. So maybe it could have ended there. He saves the plane. Okay, we're off and running. But then it would have just been a 2-parter, because when we get into the third part, it feels very much like a completely different story. Now we're meeting John Corbin and the mercenaries and finding out that Luthor's behind this, letting his weapon getting stolen and all that kind of things.
I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
But the third episode has some great elements, because they kind of set the stage for Luthor, and we get to meet John Corbin, which later on becomes Metallo. Spoiler alert, he ends up becoming Metallo.
So long, sweetheart.
And we also meet Bibbo, who is just kind of a fun character in the Superman universe that comes in throughout the episodes, which also is voiced by Brad Garrett.
Call Kurt Kent. Let him know about the boat and something about the police. Yeah. Okay. Hey, shoulder.
But the actual story of Luthor hiring these mercenaries to steal his own weapon, and the logic of Luthor's now going to get hired again by the government to create a new weapon to stop them is a little shaky. And I get the purpose of it is really just to drive home Luthor's a bad guy. Superman's going to be watching him and setting the stage for where the series is going.
You're very amusing, Mr. Kent, is it? Yes, I'll remember that.
But I do love the shot and the scene when Superman flies in behind Luthor in his office, and they kind of have their first head-to-head confrontation, and really sets the stage for where their relationship is and how Superman's going to be watching him and setting up this arch nemesis element to it.
And now, because of this alien's interference, you expect me to eat $1 billion?
So when it comes time to rank this episode, I mean, obviously it's going to fall at the #1 spot because I don't have any other episodes yet. But it is a really solid episode. It, like I said, for as much of not a fan of origin stories as I am, it does a nice job. It gives all the needed information, flies through it really quick. It doesn't feel like it's labored down. And I know I'm kind of hard on the third part for being a totally different type of episode, but I think that that's kind of nice that it fits into with this story rather than having 3 parts of how Superman came to be. So we kind of just tell what we need to tell about Superman and where he came from, and then hit the ground running and start jumping into the story, start jumping into the adventure. So obviously for now, it sits at the #1 spot of my favorite episodes so far.
I'll be watching you, Luthor.
So let me know what you think. Do you like how they set this episode up as an origin story for Superman but fly through that? Or would you rather have them spend more time or tell a different way of telling the origin story, or skip the origin story altogether like they did in Batman and just start with an adventure and start with him meeting Lex, or just hit the ground running? Or do you think it's important to do a little background information? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this episode, please click like. If you want to see more of these episodes as we work our way through every episode of Superman the Animated Series, then hit subscribe, because I have the next episode on its way. Fun and games. You don't want to miss that. Coming up next. So I'll see you then. As always, I'm Andy Knode. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.